Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for the webinar, Transitioning into Practice. While everyone's still logging on, I just wanted to take a quick moment to introduce myself. My name is Peyton, and I am I'm the Physician Engagement Coordinator here at Practice Match. Some of you attending might already know me because I work a lot of the career fairs and speak closely with the residents and fellows that join those fairs. And hopefully, since you're attending tonight, you already know a little bit of Practice Match and what we offer physicians. I just want to highlight a few of the resources that we have to offer for you. We do a free CV builder and free CV review. We have scholarship opportunities, virtual career fairs, monthly webinars like the one you're attending tonight, physician engagement handbook, and we also have a free physician career guidebook. So if you guys have any of those questions about anything I listed above, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be sending an email to you guys after this webinar. And if you have any questions for myself or Stephen, we can both answer those for you. Please note that microphones will be muted throughout this presentation tonight, and we will have a time for a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions related to the topic tonight or for any of us, please feel free to ask them in the Q&A box. Whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
All right, thank you, Peyton. So my name is Stephan McKee. I work for 25 Financial. And one of the key things that I point out is we only work with physicians and high net worth individuals. So for physicians, that's going to be residents, fellows, all the way through attending and retirement. Tonight, my goal is to ultimately cover the 1,000-foot view, mostly for the fact that I've come across multiple physicians where you're already well-versed in everything that I'm about to discuss, minus a few small details, and others, it's literally just the first time that you've begun focusing on these different aspects because you've been focusing on finishing your different programs. So with that in mind, if you do have any key questions, please hold that to the end. I'd be happy to answer those and look forward to that. But I will be giving just a 1,000-foot view. And then if you want me to dive into anything more specific than that, let me know, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so first and foremost, I'm going to be covering the defensive and offensive strategies that we have for physicians as you guys are transitioning into practice. For defensive, it's going to be, of course, life insurance and disability insurance. And then for offensive, it's Roth IRAs and tax-efficient investing. Now, I will try and breeze through these slides just because I know you've already had a long day. You're coming off of Labor Day weekend. And I recognize death by PowerPoint is no one's favorite thing to have to sit through. So I'll cover the high-level details and go ahead and dig into this. So financial security ultimately begins with protecting your income. So as you can see with this pyramid, disability insurance is the foundation because I can create one of the most robust and well-developed financial plans based upon your goals, your needs, and your vision for your future. But if something happens while you're in practice, it disables you either permanently or temporarily, that can ultimately derail your overall financial plan. So at the base of this pyramid is going to be disability insurance. Now, a lot of times we tend to think that this is only going to happen to someone else, but statistically, through Principal Life Disability Insurance, they've done a comprehensive study and the breakdown of all these different types of injuries and disabilities and everything else that might occur. And that's specific to what your specialty is. So say you're working in a hospital, you might contract something, or you're a surgeon and you have to stand for long hours, or you're an ophthalmologist or ENT and you lean forward perpetually all day long. So you might develop some kind of back issue. So in reality, there will be a time and a place in which disability may occur within your lifespan. So I want to ask one simple question is, what would happen tomorrow if I were disabled? With that in mind, when that happens, or should that happen, there's going to be a couple of factors that occur. First and foremost, you're previously healthy and working. You have your regular expenses, so food, housing, cars, whatnot. And then once you become disabled, or if, God willing, that doesn't happen, but your income goes down if it's not protected, and then you have additional large amounts of expenses such as insurance copays, in-home care, home modifications, anything like that, that can ultimately take up the additional funds that you might have allocated for something else. Now, you might say, hey, I work at a hospital. They go ahead and provide long-term disability policies for me. So if we go ahead and start with a hypothetical here of you're making umpty ump amount of money, and that's the 100% of your monthly gross income, and then say you're in a three or $400,000 income, so your tax bracket's at 35%. Now you're taxed down to 65% of that gross monthly income. Your group long-term disability, if you read through your contracts, you'll typically see that they are going to go ahead and cap that anywhere from 50 to 60% of your overall gross income. Now, with their long-term disability policies, what I would simply say is when they pay for your premiums, that is considered deferred income to the IRS. So if they start paying out that 50%, then that is going to be considered taxable. The benefits that you receive will be taxable, which then brings you down, depending on how much you're being paid out, to around 33%. So one of the reasons why we make the recommendation of individual disability insurance is for the sole fact that you can use that in conjunction with your overall group long-term disability insurance to get back to that original amount, so it's not offsetting or derailing your financial plan. Now, I do want to pause here and simply make the comment that I'm not here to peddle or recommend any specific company. But what I would say is not all companies are created equal. So there are four that we primarily focus on. Those are going to be Principal, Emeritus, Guardian, and Mass Mutual. And we make that recommendation because all four of those offer something that no other companies provide, which is something called true own occupation. Now, you may have heard of other things like physician own occupation. And I won't name any other companies because I'm not here to belittle them, but simply put, true own occupation or double dip occupation, if you become partially or permanently disabled, they will pay the full premium that you've been paying, or the full benefits, excuse me, that you've been paying the premium for, no matter how much your income goes down. Compared to other companies, they will prorate the amount of money that you have lost based upon your disability level. Now, with that in mind, I look at that as a huge benefit because if you have to retrain, you're still being paid those benefits, even if you end up making more. Best example, I actually have a client who went on a hunting trip and he shot himself in the foot and he was a surgeon. So long and short is he was unable to stand for long periods of time. Because he had the true own occupation, he then retrained into a different specialty that allowed him to make more, and he was still able to take and receive all the benefits that he'd been paying for. So the simple breakdown is, would you rather pay the same amount for coverage which is going to be prorated, or pay the same amount for coverage that will pay you the full benefit, even if you're partially disabled or making more than you were before? So that is the first defensive step that I would point out. The next one I will go ahead and jump into is life insurance versus, term versus whole life insurance. Now, this is the only slide that I have on this because it's fairly straightforward. For whole life insurance, it's exactly what it sounds like. You are covered for your entire life. However, the cost is going to always be substantially more expensive, but you do have a cash value on that. It does have a potential fixed interest rate, and the premiums are level. Versus term insurance, where it's going to be exactly what that sounds like, 10, 20, 30, 40-year terms, but the cost is going to be significantly lower. Now, one thing to note on this is with term, once that duration ends, you don't get anything if you die or pass away after that time frame, versus with the whole life, you get that until you cancel the policy or you pass away. The downside of whole life is the fact that you will have to continue paying those premiums until you pass away. So if you're 85, just for that coverage, you'll have to continue paying that. Now, about 20 years ago, before I was a financial advisor, I went ahead and fell prey to whole life. And in my personal opinion, that was not worth my time nor my money because I was paying approximately $400 to $500 a month for about $400,000 to $500,000 worth of coverage. Versus term insurance, where you can get $1, $2, $3, $4 million worth of term insurance, thereby allowing you to have greater coverage for less amount of money. Now, the end goal of whole life or term insurance is to get you to retirement, because once you hit that 60, 65-year threshold, you are able to self-insure because you've accrued enough wealth and assets that should something happen, you can continue living your life exactly how you want to because you've accrued enough money and wealth to be able to live off of that. So the other thing that I would point out is a simple question. If something happens to you tomorrow, what does that look like? Do you have mortgages? Do you have a spouse? Do you have kids? Do you have leftover medical school debt or any other kind of debt? Vehicles? So the question to ask is, would you rather live off of the principal or the interest? Because if it's whole life and you only have $500 or $1 million worth of coverage and you have a $500,000 mortgage, you want to send your kids to school, all these different factors, that principal is eaten up and gotten worked through very quickly versus term insurance, where you can do 2 million for 10 years, 1 million for 20, 1 million for 30. So now you have $4 million worth of coverage, but typically invested in a conservative manner. For every $1 million that you have, you can invest that and get about $50,000 of interest. So with a $4 million policy, if you died in the next 10 years, your significant other or kids would have $200,000 to live off of to be able to send your kids to school, to pay off mortgage, to pay off any debts, anything like that, that ultimately allows them to indefinitely live off of the interest rather than the principal. So we almost always make the recommendation of term insurance because whole life insurance is much more costly, and there are other things that you can invest that additional money into that are going to have a better rate of return than the typical fixed rate of interest that they provide. I'll pause for a quick second and let you read through this. We're now going to go ahead and transition into the offensive steps. Now, many of you are probably familiar with Roth IRAs and tax-free aspects, but there's a few benefits to them that I do want to cover. The first is going to be it's all tax-free growth now and in retirement. The second is if you choose not to tap into that in retirement, you pass away, you can give that to your children or anyone else that you want completely tax-free. The third is there's no required minimum distribution. So unlike, say, a 401k, a 457, a 403b, an IRA, all of those are tax deferred, and you're still going to end up paying taxes on them, albeit at a lesser rate because you're in a lower tax bracket in retirement. But that said, for a simple example, if I grew your 401k to $1 million and your Roth IRA to $1 million, and you wanted a yearly income of $200,000, well, you can now take, instead of $200,000 from your 401k that's tax deferred and deal with the taxes on that, you can take 100 from your 401k and 100 from your Roth IRA, and the IRS does not view any of the money from your Roth IRA as income. So now they only see $100,000 instead of $200,000, which allows you to go ahead and decrease what your overall tax bracket is, saving you even more money in retirement within taxes. Now, many of you may have heard on Roth IRAs that you exceed the income limit. If you're single, it's going to be $153,000, and if you're married, it's $228,000. So once you become attendings, there's a good chance that you're going to exceed that income limit. However, back in 2010, the IRS created a loophole called the backdoor Roth conversion. And the benefit of that is you can go ahead and still contribute to your Roth IRA, taking advantage of that tax-free growth, thereby allowing you to diversify your overall portfolio and decrease your taxes in retirement. Now, I bring up Roth IRAs for a key point. One of the recommendations that we make is that before you transition into practice as an attending, while you're still making that 60 or 70,000 per year, you are in a lower tax bracket. And I want to ask you a question here is, would you rather pay taxes now on a smaller amount, the seed, if you will, or more over time when you have the harvest? So that $1 million 401k versus $10,000 now that might be in a 401k. So I bring this up because you have the ability to convert while you're in a lower tax bracket, your old tax deferred accounts such as the 401k, 457 or IRA or 403b into your Roth IRA, allowing you to jumpstart that tax-free growth. Now, this slide ultimately is broken down by a compound interest calculator. The first one, if you look at it, is over the course of 30 years. And if you current contribution levels are $6,500 a year, so if you were to contribute $6,500 a year for the next 30 years, you would have contributed $195,000, but you would have had a valuation at a 7% growth rate of $663,000 and change. However, if you wait 2 years and only invest that $6,500 per year for 28 years, you've contributed $13,000 less, 182K, but your valuation is only going to be $568,000, which is about $90,000 difference between those 2 years based upon two $6,500 contributions. So with that in mind, the benefit that I bring up in converting those old tax deferred accounts into your Roth now is you paid less in taxes now because you're in a lower tax bracket. And then secondly, you're able to go ahead and jumpstart that tax-free growth that allows you to go ahead and over the next 20, 30, 40 years, grow to a much larger amount that's all tax-free and never going to be taxed by the IRS that you can give to your children or anyone else, and then you don't have to take out at 72 years old with the required minimum distribution that all the tax-deferred accounts have. The second offensive strategy is something called tax-efficient investing. Now, this is just a breakdown of all the different types of accounts. So for your tax-deferred, you'll have your 401k, your 403b, your IRA, your 457, and a few others. Your tax advantage or tax-free is going to go ahead and be your Roth IRA, Roth 401k, permanent life insurance. And then you have your taxable, which of course is your brokerage account, bank accounts, stocks, bonds, things that are going to be taxed as soon as you sell them or make any kind of profit off of that. Now, most firms are going to go ahead and look at these three tax buckets, your tax deferred, your taxable, and your tax-free, and they're going to invest in each one in a diversified way, but viewing each one as its own entity. So you'll have, say, A on the slide is stocks, B is going to be bonds, and C is going to be money market. So instead of us investing a 33% split into each one of those buckets, we look at this in a tax structured way that's much more tax efficient, which is ultimately going to be your bonds going into your tax deferred because we want it to grow, but we don't want it to grow as quickly. And we're going to put your small cap, your faster high growth investments into your Roth IRA because we want all that growth to be tax free. So instead of using each bucket as its own entity, we use all three as an entire entity, looking at that for your overall portfolio, thereby allowing you to save money in taxes now, as well as more in retirement by investing in this manner. So like I said, 1,000-foot view, these are really just high-level concepts and strategies that we have. What I would simply say is if you are interested, we do have complimentary meetings to go ahead and review because all of you have unique circumstances. Some have medical school debt, others already have properties and assets. Some people have families. So each person is very, very unique in this. Outside of this, we also, as I mentioned before, only work with the physicians. So we are very well versed in all the different aspects. So we can cover and provide MGMA data for you, individual disability insurance, term insurance, contract negotiation. We can also provide through preferred partners, physician home loans, student loan repayments. And once you're actually attending, I can't cover too much on this because it's outside of the scope, but we invest and utilize something called alternative investments. And I would simply say that these are not correlated with the stock market. So if you look at last year's negative 20% drop, our clients' portfolios were not hit as much by that because they're not correlated with the stock market. And they also provide very unique tax mitigation and tax deduction opportunities that can help reduce the amount that you're paying in taxes overall in order to help keep more money in your pocket. So with that said, you have my QR code there, phone number, email address, anything like that. And now let's go ahead and cover any questions that you guys have.
If you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and put those in the Q&A box below. Give you guys a couple minutes to type those out. I also opened the chat box for you guys as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask on that. I can't actually see that yet.
All right, if there is no questions, Stephen, if you're finished, we can go ahead and wrap this up. I will be sending an email again with his information and mine as well. And then it will include a link to our website as well for the recording of this. Once it's posted, it should be posted by the end of this week or early next week. So yeah, if you guys don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and let you guys have your evening back. Thank you all for attending, and Stephen, thank you for presenting for all of us tonight.
Sure, happy to help, and hope you all have a wonderful upcoming week.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.